What's going on, guys? Isaiah or Slashbit24 here, bringing you my first video with face cam here today, which is very exciting. I'm going to be doing another little Valorant patch overview video, but we're going to be doing it a little differently from here on out. I'm going to be just doing it live, just going through the patch notes and sort of just telling you my thoughts and opinions, and obviously bringing out the camera for the first time. Had to step up the game just a little bit, but yeah, either way, I wanted to kind of change up how I do the patch overview videos because I really like doing them. But I'm just going to really do them a lot more simple from now on. I'm just kind of scrolling through their patch notes here and telling you my thoughts and impressions. I will link below a link to the official Korean Valorant YouTube channel. Though that YouTube channel does these like before and after comparisons, kind of like how I used to do it, but just with a lot better editing, a lot better graphics. So I'm going to leave the like visual, before and after comparisons to the professionals, and just myself here to scroll through the patch notes and kind of do it as simple and as basic for you as possible. So we're going to hop into it here. We have a bunch of pretty big agent updates, I would say. Mainly that concerns a big buff for Viper and Yoru, and then a small change to Killjoy. Aside from that, we have a big nerf to the Bucky, and then really the rest of the patch is just general changes that you might expect, bug fixes, escalation changes, and a new HRTF audio system. But I'll get into all that in this video. So there will be timestamps down below if you want to skip ahead to a certain part, but without further ado, let's jump right into it. So we're starting out here with Viper. Viper has received a very big buff. Obviously, if you play Valorant, you know that Viper is one of the worst characters in the game, and she has been for quite some time. Not that she's a bad character per se, just that she needs a lot of practice and a lot of setup. It requires a lot of team coordination for your Viper to be effective. So they've really just gone in and buffed almost all of her abilities to really try and make it so that even if you're not playing on the best coordinated team, a solo Viper can still have some impact. So the big thing that you need to notice here for the Viper buff is in her passive, just her toxin. So this concerns all of her three abilities, so her smoke, her wall, and her ultimate. How this used to work was that when you entered one of those three things, you would start to decay health and armor, but now it's received a big buff. How this works now is when you cross through any of those three abilities I mentioned, you're going to immediately receive 50 decay. So basically, if you are at 150 health, 100 health, and 50 armor, when you touch the Viper wall, smoke, or ultimate, you're instantly going to go down to 100 health. Obviously, it's only for a limited time, but still, that just basically means that if you're pushing a smoke or pushing a Viper wall, you're really not going to want to do that anymore. Before, you could just kind of walk through it and not really receive much of a penalty. But now as soon as you touch those abilities, you're instantly decaying down 50, so to 100 health. So you're really just 2 body shots away with the Phantom or Vandal from dying. But so what they sort of done to counterbalance that is the decay will go away a lot quicker now. As you can see here, 1.5 seconds instead of 2.5 seconds. So although that decay does come back a lot quicker, it still has this like huge drop off right at the very start. So I think that this is obviously a massive buff to Viper. Before, you could just kind of walk through her wall or walk through her smoke, even just go into her ultimate. It didn't really, have a ton of like, really strong, negative impacts. But now it definitely does. You're going to be really incentivized to not do that. If we move on here to the other abilities with Viper, that's mainly her biggest buff. But her other abilities have received some minor tweaks as well. Her Poison Cloud, which is her smoke ability, you can now pick it up immediately. And that pickup distance has been increased from 200 to 400 units. Her wall also received a minor change. When Viper dies, her wall and also her smoke will stay up for an additional 2 seconds. So you still get that little window if your Viper does a bunch of stuff on a site and then she dies. You still have like a few second window to sort of capitalize on that and then to take the site with her wall and with her smoke. And then lastly, her Molotov has been, the equip time has been very slightly decreased. Another kind of cool thing that they've added is for practice tools. So you can now go into a custom game and you can recall your Viper wall. So this is kind of to get you to like practice the Viper abilities basically. I would kind of like to see them even have this just as a part of Viper's kit, be able to recall her wall or, bring back her smoke or something. But either way, you can now go into a custom game. And if you have cheats enabled, as you can see here, you can, just practice your Viper walls and your Viper smokes. So obviously, overall here, a bunch of huge changes to Viper. I think this definitely makes her, it's no way to really know if she's as good as an Omen or a Brimstone, but I definitely think that going forward, if you put some time into Viper, you will certainly be rewarded. And I think good Viper players will certainly have a much easier time having an impact in your ranked games. Now let's move on to Yoru. He is probably the worst duelist in the game before this patch, so he was definitely the other character, aside from Viper, that needed some buffs or balance changes. He's had a couple minor buffs. He had a little minor buff before with his ultimate, but it really didn't do a whole lot. So now he's received a bit more of an actual buff. The first one here is his flash. It now activates 0.2 seconds faster, so not a huge change, but it does flash for 0.4 seconds longer, so from 1.1 to 1.5. I still think Yoru's flash needed a rework, just because it's harder to sort of use effectively than the other flashes in the game. But either way now, it's going to be harder to sort of turn away from those Yoru flashes, and they will flash you for a very slightly longer period of time, so a nice little change there. But his other changes are to his teleportability, his E. It's no longer refreshed on kills, similar to the Jet, signature ability, the dash, or the Phoenix Molotov. It now just gets replenished every 35 seconds, so it works a lot more like the Sage Heal or the Sova Arrow. Just one of those signature abilities. The time where you can activate the teleport is now increased from 20 seconds to 30 seconds. And the range at which you can see the Yoru teleport has been decreased from 7 meters to 4 meters. His ult also has been reduced from 7 points to 6 points. So overall, this is going to make Yoru be a little bit better. I don't think this is obviously not as big of a buff as with the Viper changes, but this is trying to get people to incentivize to play Yoru a little bit more. I definitely think that his teleport needed to be buffed, and certainly now you can use it way more during a round. You can use it 2 or 3 times more. You can also, sort of use it a little bit more creatively because it's harder to send it for the enemies to find, and it's also with that ultimate down from 7 to 6. Just gonna, in general, bring it more in line with the other duelists in the game. Phoenix and Jet having really good ultimates, and with only being 6 points, it kind of just made sense for Yoru not to have a 7-point ultimate. So overall, some decent changes here to Yoru. I still don't think he's that good, definitely compared to the Viper changes, but sure, it's something to work with, something to start with. And we'll see if we see some more Yorus in our ranked games. The rest of our changes here are sort of just minor changes, and the first one here is to Killjoy. She can now just pick up her Nano Swarm grenades during the buy phase. So this was a thing that a lot of players were requesting, just because you can sort of, as a Cypher, you can pick up your tripwires during the buy phase. It doesn't really make sense why you couldn't pick up the Nano Swarm during the buy phase, even though you can do it for the turret and the alarm bot, I think. So just a nice little quality of life change for all you Killjoy mains out there. She can now pick up her Nano Swarm grenades in the buy phase. Let's move on now to our third and final sort of big change with this patch, and that is with the Bucky. The Bucky has been running rampant in ranked. Not as much as the Stinger was during its heyday, but still for $900, the Bucky being able to one-shot a lot of players in the head was probably a bit too strong. So the Bucky has received basically a huge overhaul. It didn't really make sense that the right click was like the main fire that everyone used. So they basically just completely obliterated the right click. As you can see here, I'm going to go down to the bottom point here. It has reduced the amount of pellets in a right click shot from 15 to 5. And the left click shot, which is the primary fire, even though it wasn't really used like that, still has that 15 shots. As you can see here with the other points, the bullet spread has been decreased on both methods of fire. So down from 3.4 to 2.6 on the left click, and down from 3.4 to 2.0 on the right click. We've also updated the damage curve for both the primary and alt fire. As you can see here, there's the damage, 20, 12, and 9 per pellet. I don't know exactly, what the damage exactly was before. They didn't really say, but I'm sure there'll be a video on some sort of channel talking about that. What you basically need to know for this Bucky change is that the right click now is really bad. They basically have explained here in the paragraph that it's now sort of used to finish off an enemy. So the right click is only really if you're needing a bit more range, but since it only shoots 5 pellets instead of 15, it's really not going to be how it was before. You can't just right click headshot someone. You're going to have to stick to that left click basically now. And obviously, since the left click has a lower range, in general, this is basically just going to make the Bucky be much more of a short range weapon. You're not going to be able to hit those one shot, right clicks from like 20, 25 meters. Going to be a very up close and personal weapon, as it probably should be. It only costs $900. They haven't adjusted the price at all like they did with the Stinger. So, but they basically have just completely nerfed the right click on the Bucky, made it so that you have to kind of just stick with that left click from now on, unless the guy you're fighting is extremely low health, you can just sort of finish him off with that longer range right click. So overall, I still think this is a good change. I did like playing against the Bucky. It was just way too strong for 900 credits. You know, 100 credits more than a pistol is kind of ridiculous. So some good changes to the Bucky, and you probably won't be seeing it at all from now on, but probably you can still use it on, you know, maps like Split, where shotguns are still useful and prevalent. The last thing though in this patch is the HRTF audio system. So this is a sort of new audio technology that has been implemented into Valorant, still in its early days, but this was something that was already in CSGO that they did add within, I think, the last like few years. So it basically just makes the audio and the directional sound better, or at least that's its goal. The HRTF in CSGO still had a lot of problems when they first implemented it, so this is probably still going to take some tweaking and some updating. Basically what this tries to do is improve the directional audio in Valorant. Valorant does have some problems sometimes where you hear guys that sound like really far away but they're really close, or they're really close but they actually are like really far away because of how loud the footsteps are in Valorant. So this is kind of to try and, you know, improve that directional audio, improve those footstep sounds. I'm not going to like break this all down because there is a video on the Valorant YouTube channel where you can probably learn more about this, and you can just read, you know, the patch notes for yourself and get a better idea of what this actually is. It basically allows players wearing headphones to play audio in a simulated surround sound audio space. So like I mentioned, it just improves the 3D audio, trying to improve that footstep audio and where you're hearing those enemy players from. Overall, this is, you know, long term going to be big for the game, and definitely a technology that other games have already used, and so I'm looking forward to seeing if it has a positive impact in Valorant. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for today's Valorant patch overview video. I hope you enjoyed my first little video here with the face cam, going through the patch notes live. Like I mentioned before, I will link these patch notes down below, but you can check them out for yourself on the Valorant website, and I'm sure on the Valorant Reddit as well. Some nice buffs here to Yoru and Viper. Definitely for sure the two worst characters in the game, so excited to see how those buffs impact the meta, and if we see some more Vipers and Yorus in our ranked matches. Also a nice nerf for the Bucky, and then just in general some other quality of life updates. That's going to do it for this video guys though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and as always, I'll see you guys soon.